Representative, thanks for being back on the program with us. First question, is school choice dead for the regular session?
Well, it might be dead for the regular session, but that does not mean that it's dead for the state of Texas this year. I really appreciate Governor Abbott's leadership on this and his continued commitment to getting not just school choice, but universal school choice passed so that every family, every parent, every student in the state of Texas can have education freedom. He's come out and been very clear that even if it takes a special session, which it's looking like it's going to, he's willing to do that. And quite frankly, we need to do that. We need to get this right. I don't care how long it takes or how many special sessions it takes. We must empower every Texas family with education freedom this year.
But it's suburban and rural Republicans who remain the roadblock on this. Do you expect any votes to change if this goes to a special session?
I think the more people, especially if they have a chance to get back and talk to their constituents, I think they're going to hear loud and clear what I've heard loud and clear. And that's the following. Any opposition to education freedom, and I want to be very clear about this to my colleagues in the Texas legislature. If you oppose education freedom, you are defending a system that right now is only educating 28% of Texas eighth graders. A lot of people don't know that. Only 28% of Texas eighth graders are proficient in English and in mathematics. And if you oppose education freedom, you're owning that. You're taking responsibility for that. You're saying that is okay. I reject that notion. You're also saying you do not trust parents, because what education freedom does is it gives parents the power to put their kid in the education setting that's best for the unique needs of that individual child. So you're saying you do not trust parents. Also, we know from data, we know from ballot referendums, and we know from polls, if you oppose school choice, you are turning your back on an overwhelming majority of the Texas voters who put you in office. Okay, we know that for a fact. And then finally, and this perhaps is the most important point that I want to strike here. Right now, some could say we have education freedom in Texas, but the only way you could say you have education freedom in Texas is to admit that the rich have education freedom. If you're a wealthy family, you have education choices. You have options for where to send your kid. I'm fighting for the poor parents, the single mothers that want nothing more than to get a quality education for their kid. And education freedom is the only way to accomplish that.
Have you had this conversation with your colleagues, though, on the right?
I have had this conversation with countless of my colleagues.
Well, what's their reaction, though? What are they telling you?
Well, I think there's a sense that we're going to get something done. I'm encouraged. I am optimistic. I am not discouraged in the slightest, because I'll tell you what, I would rather this go to a special session and get a good, robust, universal bill that works for every Texas family than try to rush something together here in the last week. So I'm not discouraged at all. I am perhaps more optimistic and more encouraged than ever. And I will tell you from my conversations, even amongst some of my colleagues in the legislature that might have been a little bit skeptical of the issue at the beginning, early days of session, there is a real sense, there's an understanding that Texans deserve this. And we owe it to our voters to get this done. I'm more encouraged than I've ever been.
Representative Governor Abbott seemed to throw his support behind the Senate version of this rather than the House version. Which one would you settle on?
Right now, what I would say to that question is I am doing everything I can to make sure that whatever it is that's passed, and I don't care what chamber it starts in, I want the biggest, the boldest, the most universal school choice package that makes sure, and again, keep in mind, this is because the first principles matter here. I believe every student, every Texas child deserves a quality education. And therefore, we've got to give every Texas parent the freedom to put that kid in the school that's going to serve the best needs of that kid, whether it's public schools or charter schools or private schools or home schools. We owe that to the 30 million Texans that we're honored to serve. And that's what I'm working for.
If the governor calls a special session, and it looks like that he might on this issue, is there anything else you'd like to see the governor add to that call?
Well, we're in the final days of negotiations here on certain big issues, such as property tax relief. I would like to make sure that we do as much as we can to give as much of our surplus back to the voters. That's of utmost importance to me. And then another thing that I think would be good for him to probably consider adding to the call is strong border security legislation. I am really disappointed that the Texas House allowed Democrats on a silly, weak point of order to kill the only serious, the only robust piece of border security legislation in either chamber. And that was House Bill 20 by Representative Matt Schaefer. It included all of the Texas Title 42 Act that I introduced a couple months ago. They created a border security force with actual findings and authorizations, and it would give Governor Abbott more tools than he has today, because we need to support our governor We need to support the state of Texas. It's unfair that we're having to do the job that Joe Biden won't secure the border. But we need to make sure that the governor has every tool the legislature is capable of giving him. And right now, we are not doing that. The House passed a watered down bill. It went over to the Senate and it got watered down even further. So if the governor is going to bring us back for a special session anyway, I think border security should also be on the top of that list, in addition to education freedom.
Before we let you go, I want to ask about property taxes. Do you expect that to get settled before the gavel falls on the 29th of May?
I'm really optimistic. Both chambers are putting in a lot of hard work on this. It's probably one of the biggest issues that matters to my voters. Of course, I would like to see us ultimately pass a package that puts us on a path to eliminating property taxes. I don't think either plan that's being proposed right now goes as far as I would like it to get to, but both of them do offer real property tax relief, and I hope that we can get something accomplished here soon, as appraisals have already gone out to the millions of Texans back home. They're waiting anxiously and rightfully expecting that we give them some property tax relief.
Representative Harrison, we appreciate the time as always.
Always great to be with you, Jason.